Oh, that was fast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I am Michelle, and of course, so with me is Diana.
Hello.
And we have a special guest this evening. We have historical fiction author Piper Huguley. Thank you so much for joining us, Piper. See, this is what I'm talking about. I got your last name right. The gods are against me tonight.
So focused on the last name.
Hilarious. I'm going to eat my cupcake and drink my wine, and Diana, go.
I'll take it over from here. Okay, so our friend Erin Lindsay McCabe does, every month she does her historical fix book talk on Twitter.
Yes.
And last month we were discussing the 1920s, and somehow we got on the subject of African American historical fiction. And it was me and another reader, and I was complaining that there's not enough out there. And Piper saw my tweet, and she called me out on it, and she was like, wait, I'm a historical fiction author. I do African-American historical fiction, and here's a bunch of other authors that you can check out. And I was like, this is fantastic. You need to come on the show. So now here you are, and it's so great to have you.
It's awesome to be here.
Yes, and I saw.
I've been lurking on that thread for like a year or so. It's time I said something anyway.
Yes. I mean, you can't just lurk on the internet anymore. You got to say something. And I understand you have a book coming out next month.
Yes, I do. And like right before we started talking and after, people were coming in with changes already. Still being edited as we speak. It's called The Swan. And it is book 7 in a 12-book novella series I'm doing with other authors. Doing his Western.
Okay.
Mail Order Bride book.
Okay.
So it's my first Mail Order Bride book.
Okay, very cool. And tell us a little bit more about the Mail Order Bride series, because I was able to look into it a little bit, and I'm sure our listeners don't really know.
Yeah, it's hooked into the 12 days of Christmas, so that's why I'm the swan.
Okay.
And I'm day 7, so I'm the swans of swimming.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, so somehow that particular verse plays into the story somehow. And so I thought I was very lucky to get the swan, because there's a lot you can do with that particular motif.
Yeah.
And yeah, my story in particular is a woman who is passing for white who comes to the town. Her racial heritage is revealed there.
Oh, I love it. And I can see how the swan can kind of play into that too.
Exactly. So you see, yes, and that's why I was glad to get it, because there's the whole notion of transformation and all of that. Because swans are when they're little cygnets. Is that how you say the word?
I think
they're really ugly. Yeah. So the whole notion of the ugly duckling, they're not very attractive when they're young.
And it's so relevant too, because there's they just announced the movie. I forget the actress's name, but it's about the first Black woman who went to Vassar, and she passed off as a white woman.
Oh yes, The Gilded Years.
Yes. Yeah.
I saw when Reese Witherspoon picked it up. They're going to call it A White Lie, but The Gilded Years is what the book is called.
Okay.
It's a good book.
What was that?
The Gilded Years.
The Gilded Years. Okay. Well, we're going to have to write that down. Yes. That's something I'm going to have to add to my to-be read list.
You're already staggering. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, I think, mainstream are kind of tripped up about this idea of somebody who's able to hide their race for that long. The idea that race could be that transmutable, but it can be. This is part of our heritage in this country, that you have people who were willing to cut themselves off from family and everything they knew in order to try to take advantage of what they saw as opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the American way, you know,
Yeah.
really, when you think about it.
Yeah, and a few books have touched on it that I can think of. America's First Daughter, that talked about Thomas Jefferson's son doing that. And he was a talented violinist who did it. And then also, there's Sarah Waldinger. I butcher her last name all the time, but she's coming out with a series, a Charleston series, where the main characters, they can pass off as white, but they're slaves. And you know, it's something that we don't really see in our history. And I'm wondering if part of it is that we don't have as much African American history in the mainstream within the historical fiction. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I think you're right. I think the fact that there is a dearth of African American authors writing this stuff means that you don't get those stories out there. And I think particularly one of the things about the passing story that you don't get out there is not just the notion of what an opportunity it could be, but what people are also giving up. So yeah, I agree. I think that's a large reason why these stories are out there. And when I first brought up the idea, a lot of people in the group, amongst the other 11 authors, they were all like a little, I don't know, how's that going to work? We should have invited that nut in here, but you know.
That's the story of my life.
Yeah. Well, then I said, you know, who it was that inspired me. You know, because of it, you know, as authors, you have pictures of people to inspire you as you're thinking about the character and such. So for me, my inspiration was Meghan Markle. So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting when, you know, I was doing my research and thinking of questions for your interview tonight. And I was really fascinated. I was reading through your blog, and I was really fascinated by the story that you wrote about the washerwoman strike. And I messaged Diana and I said, you know, I kind of feel like a terrible person because I really don't know that much about African American history besides like the big things that everyone knows. And historical fiction is such a great way for people to learn. I mean, it's fiction, so it's not all truth, but it's a good way to get people into certain historical eras. So I think this is definitely a subgenre of historical fiction that should be put out there more for people to learn more.
I actually read something really great today that I thought would apply really well to the show tonight, which was they said, I read nonfiction to learn. I read historical fiction to feel what it was like for them. And I think with African American historical fiction, that is a really perfect way to put it in there, because we have no idea, at least for, you know, the majority of Americans, white Americans and other non-people of African descent, we don't know. We don't know what it's like to experience that prejudice and to, you know, some of the simple things like in The House Girl, just the very basic concept of you can't keep your kid. You having your child, you may give birth to that child, and that child might be yours biologically, and your husband could be a free man, but that child is based on the mother's lineage, and it's up to your owner whether or not you get to keep your own child. And that's disgusting, and that's awful, and to have to go through that, you know, as a reader, we become more empathetic, and I think that this is a genre that's needed in our society right now.
I agree, but I what I've come across ever since I've started doing this 3 years ago is, and maybe this is now changing because of what's going on in society now. I certainly hope so, because there are a lot of stories that are big stories that could be told even bigger than how I'm doing it. But there's been resistance to that empathy. in terms of not necessarily seemingly caring to read, that even just to be transported in that little space of time, it seems like a bridge too far for some, maybe. But I also think of it in terms of emphasizing the whole notion, again, of an American story. Like with my character in the Swan, how far to make a new life west for yourself. Become someone who, which then has a certain kind of potentially legal implications in the story. That I had to go to the law in Colorado to figure it out. To figure out how she could be part of that community and be who she is. So I'm not going to give it away. But.
No, but I'm so intrigued now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to clear a bunch of stuff on my calendar within the next few minutes. I need to read this. I don't care if it's out of order with everything else. I need this book right now. Yeah, as you say, this is all part of the American experience where we're such an immigrant nation that all of these stories coming through that should be told, that's all part of who we are, this rainbow flag, if you will, of who we are and what we are. Yeah, and I think that's, a great story to tell in that. Now, from some of your other books, what is it like? I'm writing about Italian heritage, which is my heritage.
Oh, cool. I love Italian stories. I do. I just read one
for you,
too.
what's it been like for you researching into your heritage and your culture? Has it been really rewarding for you just in general, or how's the experience been for you? Because I'm kind of curious. I'm like excited. I'm like somebody like me who writes about their cultures and stuff. So.
Yeah, I love Italian. You have to tell me when yours comes out. Like, I thought the best part. Have you read the Saturday Evening Girls Club?
No, I haven't.
That's on Amazon, and it's about the girls' club in Boston where the immigrant girls that were Italian and Jewish would get together.
Oh.
At the turn of the 20th century, and there were 2 Italian girls in the group and 2 Jewish girls in the group, and I just love reading that stuff. Just was fun.
I have a tendency to like have this list of books with Michelle. Like I'll talk about books and she's like, okay, I gotta add it to the book. You are like that with me. You're giving me all these books. I'm like, okay, I gotta add this down. I'm gonna have to furiously read now. I'm never leaving my office. I'm gonna sit here and I'm just gonna read all the time.
or some of my students say, I feel like I'm reading with both hands and both feet.
Should only be so
all
lucky.
The poor English majors trying to catch up with everything they have to do.
Yeah.
For me, and the reason why I got into writing historical fiction after it finally knocking me upside my head that I could do it, has to do with presenting about African American life that comes from a place of strength and resilience and resistance to a particular circumstance, not the widely known historical narrative of victimization and being downtrodden and being on the lower parts of society, but of thinking about how those people survived racial attitudes and the bigotry. What kept them going strong? What were those things? And that's where my stories focus. I feel that the historical narrative, nonfiction and historical fiction alike, that has been told, incomplete without this particular approach. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to the table in these stories. So
that's so exciting and so great. Now I'm gonna have to start picking up and reading all of your books now, because that's I love the concept of women, particularly for me, it's women of strength. I love a strong female lead. That's my thing. That's my jam. That's what I write. And I agree. That's what I want to read. And
and that is certainly the case across my series in terms of there being a strong female who intentional comes into this circumstance, like in my Milford College series, and whether the hero wants her to stay or not, she's going to stay. She doesn't care what he says and make her way. And with my Migrations of the Heart series, these sisters who are looking to find their way in the world, yeah, all of that. So I agree with you too. It's we have to sort of, for the women particularly, who didn't get a chance to get their stories told.
Yeah.
Tell those stories. Because like I always say, if the ancestors hadn't done what they did, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
And I was reading, I found an interview that you did on another blog that you said that the continued struggle for historical fiction is to build a bridge between build a bridge connecting the author and the readers, and particularly the time and the story to the readers. So when you're writing, you know, you're approaching historical fiction and African American history from, like you said, from an angle that hasn't really been discussed before. How do you build that connection, since so many people have such little knowledge or, you know, little awareness for that approach?
I really do think that tapping into that sense that's where the fiction part comes in terms of tapping into the emotions of the character really gets to be of vital importance. So trying to create a character that people can root for the heroine, so that people can feel what it's like to be in her shoes, you know, in terms of like this character for the Swan, how badly it is that she wouldn't be part of this community, but going into it, she can't be her true self, or she risks being cast out. I mean, who hasn't gone through that kind of thing before? So there was a lot of that I felt like that I had to play up in terms of this, you know, really the transformation that she undergoes in the story.
And I read something that you had mentioned as far as like doing your research for your stories, that you have a unique problem, that there are lots of periods of time in African American history that there are gaps in records because there was so much illiteracy going on. So how did you kind of fill those gaps and kind of conject what was happening?
Yes, actually, I think it's a problem, but for historical fiction writers, that's also a cool thing, because then we can make that up, you know. In terms of it, as long as it's, you know, believable and realistic and all of. One of the things that your consequence across my books is have an author's note with bibliography attached, in terms of people wanting to know what the actual history or historical things that were established. But that is an issue in terms of historical fiction about African Americans, that because of the illiteracy, you do have to make up a certain kind of thing for connectedness for that to happen in terms of the story. But yeah, it is what it is. As a particular, that's why we're fiction. Yeah, exactly. That's why we're fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, people who are driven to know more based on whether it's some shred or scrap of something, that's where you start, and you start that what ifing process. And
yeah. I know every time I pick up a new historical fiction book, I'm Googling everything I can about it. Like I just started listening to Before We Were Yours.
Yes, so yes, I finished reading that.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I've been looking at that one.
Yeah.
And I'm.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
listening to it at work today, and I was like, half the time I'm like working on a document, and I'm like, oh my god, that this is not happening. I got to stop everything. I've got to listen to this.
Yes.
But yeah, and I had to stop, and I had to Google about what happened with these children being kidnapped.
Yeah.
And
I'm
my
old
God.
enough where I remember the TV movie that Mary Tyler Moore did,
Mhm.
and won. I think she won. It was one of her many Emmys or Golden Globe or something that she won. So I knew the story, but but tells it from a different vantage point of the orphans themselves. So yeah, I knew the story and what an awful woman that woman was.
That
And
was
yeah,
some criminal
that novel
mastermind.
certainly brought that to bear. So yeah, not all women were heroic.
Yeah, no, they're not.
It's an awful woman, Georgia Tann. Yes, I agree.
Sometimes it's crazy the level of hatred you can feel for a fictional character or someone in a book where you just have to put the book down and walk away because you're so mad.
Yeah. She just, ugh. I mean, there was all kinds of conjecture about why she was that, and of course, that novel doesn't go into that. But still, it's like I don't know if I want to hear that. She was an awful person.
Yeah, I was reading about it today, and I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, but that's what good historical fiction does. It makes you want to just pick up Google or pick up another book, a nonfiction book, and just learn more.
Well, that's what some people. I like to think of historical fiction as the kind of fiction that puts butt in Khalif. It does. It's like people want to learn more about so and so then they come and they learn more about the history of stuff. And yeah, that's where part of what I do for the day job is try to get that whole thing going around historical fiction in order to get more young people pulled into the history, and because it's important to pass it on. And it seems like in our current society, the impetus is to need to, must pay attention to the history.
And even like with like I have a sister who's 12 years younger than me, and I remember when she was in high school, I've always been a history nerd, and she just hated history. And what they taught her in schools was basically, and we talked about it later because I started introducing her to historical fiction later on. And she was like, what they taught me was a bunch of wars, a bunch of dates, and a bunch of old dead white dudes. Right. I'm not interested in that. I want to know what it was like. And she's like, I forget what the books I've handed her that were historical fiction. And she's like, you hand me stuff like this, I'm going to get interested. I'm going to enjoy it. And I think as historical fiction authors, we make it come alive. We make people want to know more about our history.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, in terms of the way it's being taught, it's not engaging. But like you said, I like you, I was a history nerd. Like for Halloween, my mother got this one pattern, and she like every year I was something different off of that historical. I came to puberty, and then we couldn't do with the pattern anymore. So like I was Betsy Ross one year, and a Pilgrim another year, and so then like culminated being Laura Ingalls Wilder another year. So
I was the kid who wanted to go to all the historical fiction sites. I grew up in upstate New York, so there's a lot of Revolutionary War sites. Okay. So I was begging my mother. I wanted to go to the Oriskany Homestead. I wanted to go to the Revolutionary War battlefields. And then when I come out here to California to visit my dad, I'd have him take me to the missions. We learned about it. I remember learning about it in the 5th grade. And I was like, oh, that's in California. I wonder if my dad knows about this. I sent it to him, and I was like, can we go? And if we go out there, and he was like, yeah, sure. And we spent the day going and learning about the missions of California because that's what I was interested in. I thought that was just almost as cool. I should say not just as cool, but almost as cool as Disneyland because, roller coasters.
Yeah. Oh, Disneyland. No. I was never interested in that. And my husband and I honeymooned in Charleston and Savannah. So there you go.
I want to go to Savannah so bad. That's on my list of places I gotta go to.
Awesome.
See, my husband and I were so awesome. We were just in France, and we would get so excited because they had these castles. There's about 80 castles along this ridge in the Alsace region, and they're all abandoned. They got during the 30 Years' War, and we're like, we don't really know much about the 30 Years' War, and we're like using up all our data in France just to research the 30 Years' War. And okay, which castle was this? What happened with this person? And my sister and brother-in-law are just like, okay, we're just gonna leave them. We're just gonna continue to walk on. And like what little French I had learned, I'm like translating for Ryan from the boards. I'm like, this is so cool.
Hilarious. That sounds like fun.
It was. Yeah.
See, I'm kind of that way now. When we learned about American history in school, in grade school, that block of time, my family moved to Europe. So instead of learning about American history, which I actually know very little about because I missed all of those years, I'm now getting into because of historical fiction and Diana. And
horrible influence.
So I have, stacks of biographies and nonfiction books about American history that I'm just now starting to get into. So I feel like I'm probably about 20 years behind the curve, but now I think I appreciate it more than I would.
I think publishing is like 20 years behind the curve too. So you're
not kind of right on pace then with them.
Look at you being all
true. Like this whole thing in terms of American history, I think that they're still catching up with. So you're right in time. I would say.
Well, good. So I don't feel like that behind everyone then.
Yeah. Right. No.
Well, I believe our time is up for tonight. Thank you so much, Piper, for joining us. It was fun. I know. It's been 40 minutes. Crazy.
Wow. It was awesome. So I will see you guys on the Twitters, right?
Yes, see you on the Twitters. And feel free to listen to us. Podcast.com, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, basically. And here on YouTube, of course. And hopefully at some point we'll be back on our regular channel. So we'll see.
Thank you so much, Piper.
Thank you very much, ladies. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we'll check out her books. So
yes, I have to add books to my list now. And
yes.
But it's a good problem to have.
It always is a good problem to have, exactly.
Yeah, you never want your to-be read list to end.
No, that would be bad. That would be boring.
Life would be over.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was fun.
That was fun. Oh my God, it's like 1,000,000 degrees in here.
So on to our discussion portion of the Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane.
Yes.
Why does yours have a really cool plastic cover and mine doesn't?
Well, I checked it out from the library.
Oh.
So I am not that careful with my books. I probably should be, but I'm not. But can I just point out that, and I'm going to post this on Instagram after this, but Diana posted a picture of her book and a cupcake and wine. And
cupcakes because I'm just that way.
And this was not coordinated or planned, but I too have a picture of my book and a cupcake and wine.
The fact that we're like in each other's heads so much is kind of scary.
It is a little freaky.
Yeah. I would say get out of my head, but my head is the crazier place of the two of ours. So you be careful.
I know. Yeah. I've left chocolate instead of breadcrumbs because breadcrumbs would be useless for me.
Well, as long as I don't eat the chocolate, you're good.
So what are you drinking tonight?
I am finishing off my bottle of California Roots. Well, actually not finishing off because, I don't want to be hungover tomorrow.
Not
So
like
the
last week.
California Roots Pinot Grigio, which is really good.
And I'm
It's
having.
my favorite of the California Roots.
That's the Target one, right?
But I'm in a Pinot Grigio phase now because of France, because that's what they grow there.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm like Pinot Gris everything.
White wine for everyone.
I used to be the Chardonnay girl, now I'm the Pinot Gris girl.
It's not a bad girl to be.
You know, it's not. As long as wine is involved, I find that it's not a bad thing at all. So what are you drinking?
I'm having a Sangiovese.
Ooh, I love the way you said it. Sangiovese. So Italian.
It's very good. So, all right, I don't know if they have this food store on the West Coast. Mariano's, do they have it out there?
No.
Okay. Well, it's kind of like Whole Foods-ish.
Okay.
And they just opened.
Italian?
Yeah. So, well, kind of. But they just opened one kind of close to me, and my mom and I are driving home from the trampoline park with the kids, and we saw it open. We're like, oh, let's go look. This store, had I known about this, I would have gone there a long time ago without the kids. They have a wine bar in the store, like an actual wine bar, and their wine section is to die for. So we found that there. It's really
It's
good.
so funny that I say Mariano. Mario is a family name for my family. So I've got Uncle Mario. I've got a cousin named Mariano. And then he's got a kid who's named Mariano. And then another cousin, his niece named one of her kids Mario. Or it might be Mariana. She might have had a girl. Because everything is a variation of my Uncle Mario after he died. So. Yeah, it's like Luigi for some families. We have Mario, William, and Joseph.
It's like
Nick,
Nicky.
Exactly. So, what shall we talk about first? Our new book boyfriend named Jin, or the Linya's frenemy Chaite?
Well,
Saite. I don't know how to pronounce it. She's just the frenemy.
I've been saying Site, so I don't know if that's right.
Let's go with Site. I think that sounds better than Chaite. So let's go with Site.
But I'm kind of, I just passed, so we're just before part 4. So she just went on her first date with Jin, and I'm kind of in love with him because he's so, like.
I had to keep reading because I wanted to know what was going on with him because I love the story so much. Or I loved his character so much. He was just so charming.
He was so nice. Like he had no expectations. He wasn't like, you will marry me and you will obey me.
But his mother is the cutest. I mean,
mother. I love her.
Yes, I mean, I can't imagine going to the park and like having mothers be like, marry my son, with pictures and stuff. Yeah, that's kind of weird, at least for, our culture. It would be kind of like frowned upon, I suppose. But with her, it was kind of, even though she had pictures of him, she made a point of befriending Linya so that she got to know her first before she was like, okay, now you want to meet my son? No? How about now?
Well, I mean, she's a very smart woman.
She is, which means that she's got a smart son.
But I love that for the first time in her life, she met a man who wasn't all about him. Like he asked her questions about her, and he bought her tea to impress her, and he wanted to.
And okay, that tea where he buys her to impress her, I think is the most adorable thing ever. Because he buys her this tea and he puts it in a nice box, and it's a really nice box, but it's craft tea. It was like, oh my god, total first date faux pas, but it's so cute because he tried.
I know. It's cream cheese frosting. I hate cream cheese frosting.
Oh, I've got my cupcake was super sugar frosting. It was like grocery store level cupcakes. I mean, they serve the purpose for cupcakes, as a snack.
But I was kind of heartbroken a little bit when she went back to her village and it was all modernized. Like, I don't know why. I just felt so sad for her. Like, you know, she had done so much to try to hold on to her culture and her beliefs as she was going through school, and she had to adjust so much to fit in the city. And then she goes back and her dad has a cell phone, or, you know.
Well, that's what ends up happening with these cultures when you look at like Brazil in particular, where you have these, they go out of their way to make sure that there's no outside contact with them, so that like the outside is careful about preserving their culture, because they just adapt so quickly to everything, and they pull in so much of the other culture, and they lose their otherness. And in some ways it can be good education wise, and in some ways, you know, it can be bad because they lose a bit of who they are.
Yeah, I mean, in a way it's great because, you know, her family doesn't have to work that hard. And you know, I was really impressed with, you know, Site. She's kind of like become her own woman, her own business
How far are you in
woman.
Site's story?
Well, really the only other interaction that I've had with her was when Lin Yan went back to the village. So, you know, she offered to. Oh, did something happen? Do I not know? Do I not know things?
Yeah, because I thought it happened before part 4, but apparently it happens after part 4. So I am, from the very beginning, I never really cared for her character. I was always suspicious of it, because I mean, if you notice, like when she goes to the flower room with Sampa, Site is very, she gets jealous, and she's like, "You're going to be one of those friends who just ditches me, who just,"
Even though it's kind of who she is.
Yeah, and that becomes who she is. And then she ends up, she's like, "I'm going to the flower room with so many guys," and then she ends up with Lapa, which was the guy that Lenya was like, "Really, I'm not going with him. I'm not settling for him." But that's who Site ends up marrying. And it kind of feels like she feels like that frenemy, that high school frenemy that's like your best friend to your face, but the moment you turn your back, she will stab it, and is secretly extremely jealous of you and will put you down at every opportunity. I kind of related to her a bit with that, because not that you're not that person, not in the slightest, but I actually, one of my best friend from high school, or one of the a best friend from high school that I knew since like kindergarten, turned out to be like that. And I dropped her before she could actually truly stab me in the back. But yeah, it was, you're gonna find out more, and I can't wait to get that text going. Oh my god, because that's gonna happen. Because I'm actually technically finished with the book. See, so this is what I did. This is the second book of Lisa's that I've read, and she's become one of my favorite authors. I think she's in my top 10. And what happened was, I really wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to know Haley's story, because I love how in between the chapters we're getting to know Haley, the girl that Lenya gives up, and we're starting to learn more about what happens to her. And I wanted to know what happened with her. I wanted to know more about Lenya and Jin, because, you know, Jin's the new book boyfriend. And so I read ahead, and I skimmed ahead. I don't have that much farther to go. I'm like halfway. I'm at page 286 out of 364. So I've got a little less than 100 pages to go. So yeah, I skimmed ahead. I know what happens at the end of the book. So I'm kind of sort of finished. I say kind of sort of, and I plan on going back and reading more, because I want to know how Lisa gets from point A to point Z, just because she's just that good of an author.
Well, I used to do that, and you used to yell at me for reading ahead and skipping to the end of the book.
Well, I just had to know. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot take this. I cannot sit in this suspense. I've got to know what happens. And I found out what happens. And I started reading it more and, you know, enjoying now I can enjoy what's going to happen, the story progression, because I know what's going to happen in the end.
So now it's like a stroll, rather than a race.
Yes, exactly. I know where the hill is, and I'm going to casually walk up because I know just how high it is. So, okay, so casting-wise, for Jin, I am totally casting Donnie Yen. I called it before.
Okay.
And I'm casting him because Donnie is he's my Asian crush, and Jin is my new book boyfriend. So it's like this perfect world.
I don't know if anyone will remember this, but for Mrs. Chang.
For those of you who don't know Donnie Yen, he was the Asian in Rogue One, the monk who couldn't see and kept saying the force is with me, and I'm one with the force and the force is with me.
Yes.
That's him.
I can understand the crush.
Right? I am not out of my mind on this one. Okay, go on.
For Mrs. Chang, this just popped into my head, but do you remember Mrs. Kim from Gilmore Girls?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of picture her, even though Mrs. Kim in Gilmore Girls was insanely overbearing, but I can kind of see that cleverness in her that she would like.
But she was Korean though.
Well, okay. That just popped in my head. I didn't do the background.
But somebody along those lines, I could totally see that.
But
we'll have to see if the actress is actually Korean or Chinese, because she could just be playing a Korean. I
totally forgot what I was going to say now, but
it was. I keep interrupting you because I'm Mr. Interruptions today.
As Mrs. Chang was totally the whole time. I mean, they're friends, and I believe that she did not like pick her out in the crowd and decide like, you are perfect for my son, I will set you up. I believe that they are friends first and foremost, but she was laying the groundwork the whole time.
She's laying the groundwork, but I think she probably had a candidate in mind. She wasn't like the other women who are like, okay, you look like a nice person, I'm gonna set you up with my son. It was you look like a good candidate, I'm gonna get to know you as a person before I set you up with my son.
And it's really nice to know, like, because you followed this girl's story from when she was a young child to who she is today, and she's now like in her mid-20s ish. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden she is a successful business owner, 50%. Mm-hmm. And she lives by herself, and she's making money, and she's successful.
She has this independence that she never dreamed of.
And she's living all the things that she saw on the posters in her one-room schoolhouse that she thought were magic, that didn't exist.
Yeah, and can we just talk about the teacher that she had there? Because we find out, I'm assuming you find out the mom, Jen's parents' story. Am I correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, and you basically find out that that's what happened to her teacher. He got sent there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was never allowed to go back home. So I'm now wondering about him. Like, it creates more of an appreciation for him that he's taken the time, that he's teaching the children and he's working with them, and he's put in this village. But what did he leave behind? Did he leave behind a family? Did he leave behind a girlfriend? What kind of life did he leave behind? I want to know more about him now.
There are a lot of There are a lot of characters in this book that I wouldn't mind reading more backstory. I would like to know more about her mom. Because her mom, is still one of my favorite characters so far. I mean, I know I love Jin, what I've seen of him so far, but her mom still is one of my favorite characters in the book. And I like what you said about reading Haley's you know, like the emails or the installations throughout the book. I really am curious to know if we start seeing the story from Haley's point of view, or if Haley will start playing a larger part. And I see you smiling.
I know nothing.
I know you
I
know
know
things.
nothing, Jon Snow.
You read books and know things.
Yes, yes, I do. This is what happens when you blow off everything else and read a book.
I miss being able to do that.
You totally can. Just put the TV on for your kids. They'll all be all right. Right? They're still at that age to put the TV on, and they can just, the TV can babysit them.
Sometimes. But now I'm pretty sure Landon is going to be a race car driver when he gets older, because he's obsessed. His obsession with cars, like the movie Cars, has extended to all cars in general. And
can I teach him quotes from Talladega Nights?
Oh my gosh, one of his favorite things to do is watch car racing videos on YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
So now he'll pick up like my phone or Rich's phone and bring it over to us and go, cars, cars.
Oh, so cute.
It is. It's adorable, but
He's like Bobby, where he's like, I want to go fast. I want to go fast.
He probably, as soon as he like realizes what that means, he probably will start saying that.
Yeah, and you're gonna be like the mom who's like, okay, I'm just gonna go in the store and cry because everybody thinks I have a slow kid who can only say I want to go fast.
Well, he can say other things like food. He's got food down.
Food and fast and cars, you know, that's all he needs.
He's such a boy.
He is.
Oh my gosh, Lily, I have to tell you this. Okay. Lily said her first feminist statement ever.
Oh, really?
So my mom bought them a remote control car, and our neighbor Elijah came over and was like messing around trying to learn the remotes. And my mom asked him like, "Oh, Elijah, have you figured it out?" And he goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, you're a guy, so I guess you figure these things out." Because the remote's kind of tricky, I don't know. And a second later, Lily goes, "Here, Elijah, I'll do it, because sometimes girls can do things too."
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so adorable.
Like, oh my God, you're tiny.
Lily was right here, right now, so I could cheer her on and congratulate her. Oh, my little feminist.
You've made Auntie Diana so happy, Lily.
All she needs to do now is dress up like Ruth Bader Ginsburg for Halloween, and she is my favorite.
So that was happening in our house last night.
Oh, fun. Yeah, nothing as cool as that happening in our house last night.
But so going back to the
brought me home cupcakes from work, so that's always a plus.
Rich brought home a dozen donuts, and my mom and I brought home brownie bites and cupcakes and cookies. So
I love it sometimes with Ryan because he'll come home really early in the morning sometimes, and he'll have like the donuts come fresh from the donut shops.
Those are the best.
Yes, and so I'll come downstairs for work, and there'll be like a thing of donuts all like set aside in Ziploc bags, so I can just grab one for work and take off. And like, oh, he's the best husband ever. And also the worst for my waistline, but the best husband ever.
Best husband ever. Hashtag. But anyway, sorry, we had to digress for a second there. I really want to know how this book ends. And it's been like a super busy week, so I haven't done that much reading, but I did read a little bit right before the show because like I totally forgot where I left off. But I got right back into it. And I love her tea men that come in and drink tea and gossip with each other.
They're like the guys from Cheers.
They're so cute. And I love, and she tries to like steer the conversation away from like anything too heavy that might depress one of them.
They're her friends. They're great. I love it. And Her mysterious benefactor. Don't you want to know who that is? Who's this mysterious person that she goes into partnership with?
I didn't know that it was a mysterious person. I thought it was just like a tool to propel the story forward. But now I'm intrigued.
Now you're
I
gonna have to
didn't
stop
pick up
everything
on
that you're
that.
doing. Now you're gonna be like, okay, kids are in bed. I need to finish the book.
Oh my God, is it her teacher?
No, I can tell you that no, it is not.
Is it her mom?
No. Like her mother has that kind of money.
I don't know, she might.
You're gonna find out, and I'm gonna get a text at like 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God. So yeah, you guys need to keep an eye out for who this is if you haven't gotten that far as into part 4 in the book yet.
I mean, usually I kind of pride myself on picking up on little tiny details that are important. Blew right past that one.
This is what happens when you read ahead.
Man.
I know.
Well, I guess the good news about having the show an hour early tonight is I'm not dead tired and I can read.
You can. Yeah, I am. After this, I'm going to go have. Actually, I didn't even think about the tie-in. I picked up some Chinese food to go, stuck it in the fridge, grabbed some cupcakes to snack on, so that I didn't have to drink on an empty stomach. Because yeah, we don't do that at my house. And so yeah, I'm gonna go do. I can actually do some more writing tonight. I'm like, get stuff done.
Like, ooh, productivity. Let's do this.
Wait, yeah, I'm like, ooh, productivity. That sounds great. Oh, wait, no, not so great.
Yeah, I need to. I started writing again, and I've been writing like every day, but I haven't written the past couple days because I haven't been waking up early, and I really hate writing at night. I can't do it.
I can write at night pretty much. I can write pretty much whenever. It's whenever I get the few moments. And I remember you. Okay, so kids, here's a story from back with Michelle and I back in the day. I had stopped writing for a very long time, but for a number of years I just stopped writing altogether, and I just became a bookworm. And I don't remember what it was that I sent you.
Olivia. It was Olivia.
Yes, I started. It was when steampunk was really big, and I started writing this steampunk story, and I shared it with Michelle. And Michelle was like, oh my God, why aren't you writing? You need to be writing. You've got talent. You need to write. She nagged me so much about it that not only did she nag me, but she would send me articles. And she would send them to me via Twitter, and she would tag the freaking author of the article so that the author would nag me too. And I remember one of the articles in particular where the guy was just like, write every opportunity that you get. He was like, I was writing while my wife was in labor, and we're just waiting around for the contractions to get big enough so that we could actually start with the delivery. And he's like,
That's a very understanding wife.
Right? Well, I mean, she's married to a writer, so come on now.
Sure.
So I was like, I need to adapt that kind of philosophy where I write every free moment that I've got. And so because of that, and because of Michelle's nagging, I became the kind of writer who writes every opportunity that she can, and I bring around a little lectern, which our friend Julie gave to me, this little blue book that I write down in my notes, which you can totally start doing, Michelle. See, now it's my turn to start nagging Michelle because she's a really good writer too. You can bring this around with you, so when the kids are playing and you don't actually have to be interacting with them, you can scribble down a few notes, you can sketch out a scene, and then come back later and type it up, and it makes things easier.
I know. I need to start. I do need to start doing that because I'll think of things like, well, and be like, ooh, I like that. And then by the time I get home, I forget about it.
Yeah, like the idea I came up with today that I've been telling you about, I came up with that on my way into work, and I stopped and everything, drank a little coffee, and then worked on the first little bits of it after I got into work today.
And I love that story.
Huh?
And I love that story. Very interested.
And ironically, it's not historical fiction.
Well, I think that plays a really large part in being a writer, is finding your niche.
Mm-hmm.
You know, until you found your niche, until you found where you belong. And maybe that's not true, because like Seth, he wrote Semper Sonnet, which is kind of like historical fiction / thriller, and then his next book was political thriller and completely different.
But they're still thrillers. His niche is thrillers. It's that suspense thing. That's his niche. But you've got a point on that, where, you know, with mine, it's the Italian immigrant experience, or Italian American history. Piper, African American history, writing strong African American characters.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, his is the misfits. That is his niche. Is he can write a great misfit, and he's coming on the show next week, by the way. Yay!
I'm so excited.
So, you know, guys, how I was like really drunk last week, if you couldn't tell, because I did finish the whole bottle of wine because Michelle dared me.
I did nothing like that.
You totally did.
On air.
On air. Yeah. So I'm not one to back down from a dare, and I drank the whole bottle of wine, got really drunk, and during the show we were like, oh, Scott, we miss him. So after the show, I messaged Scott, and I was like, oh, you should come on the show, and we should make it a surprise for Michelle. Meanwhile, 2 minutes after I sent that message, I had guess who I invited to the show. So
well, it was a surprise. Well, I'm very excited to see him again.
Mm-hmm. I think it might have to be a regular thing for every Thanksgiving, at least, that we have him on the show.
I think did we do Annie asked
in June for our anniversary.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that he's been posting like snippets of his story on Facebook and like asking for advice. So it's like you can kind of see how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to keep searching Amazon for new books.
You know, it's going to take him a while. It takes us a while to write a novel. You do realize this, right?
I know. But as a consumer,
you have no patience. You've got zero chill, Michelle.
I have been waiting for Emily Giffen's new book for 2 years, and I finally got a release date. June 26th. I still have to wait like 7 months.
Good books take time.
I know. And I am nothing if not patient.
Nicole Evangelina, another historical fiction author, actually posted something where somebody said that they did a new book every 7 weeks.
I don't know how you can do that.
You can't do that and actually do something with quality.
But then, you know, we've had authors on the show like
I mean, I can see one every year doing one.
Jenny Walsh, Becoming Bonnie.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote like from start to published in like 7 months. That blows my mind that people can do that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, it took me 8 months to do the first draft of Anita.
It took me, well, I'm not even done, but it's taken me like 3 years with one idea.
And here I am trying to talk you into a different idea.
And I have like 2 others that I've thought of and I've written down. And I'm like,
you gotta write them down, yeah. And I'm working on like my second and third and fourth ideas too, in between my edits of Anita. So if I can.
It's okay. We are overachievers. This is who we are.
Mm-hmm. That's part of being a writer. You have these ideas, you jot some stuff down, you set it aside, let it ferment while you finish your main project, and then you come back to it because you see so much of that, ooh, new shiny thing. You see that, but you can't just go run off with the new shiny thing.
No. Mm-mm. And no matter how shiny it may be.
And I like shiny things.
Well, we are just about at our hour. And we have completely just derailed.
Well, I mean,
but it's okay.
We talked a lot about the Tea Girl Hummingbird thing.
Mm-hmm. No, we did, and I think
we did. And I mean, we talked about our new book boyfriend. And
our guest for next week. It was not all random conversation. Our conversation had a direction this week. Last week it was kind of.
Last week you were just happy to be on air.
Yes, last week we just talked, and hopefully someone listened.
Hopefully Lisa is listening going, oh my God, I'm going to have to be on the show at the end of the month. What have I gotten myself into? These girls are crazy.
It's a lot of fun. Everyone who comes on our show tells us afterwards how much fun that they have.
It is true, and it's not just the alcohol talking.
Even, not even, but also Michelle from last month, she emailed me afterwards and she goes, I can totally see why you guys do this every week. That was so much fun.
It's like our weekly therapy session.
It is. And what I saw something on Instagram and I wanted to send it to you and be like, hashtag heterosexual life partners. And it was something like, if you buy me a book, I'll fall in love, or I'll like you. If you read a book that I've read and talk to me about it, you might as well propose, or something like that. Like, oh my God, Diana and I are in a seriously committed relationship.
Totally are. A backstory: I started calling Michelle my heterosexual life partner because, frankly, we talk every day at multiple points a day. We are in each other's head, like as in the cupcake thing. This is not the first time that this has happened with us. We discuss everything. It's weird. Well, I can't say it's weird, but I think I think the only person I talk to more is my husband. So yeah, basically this is like our one-on-one hour time.
It's the Michelle and Diana show.
It is. Welcome to the Michelle.
But Wine, Women, and Words sounds better, so that's what we went with.
That is true, yeah, because the Diana and Michelle show kind of sounds a bit narcissistic, which I am not opposed to because I am a narcissist.
It might have scared people off.
Yeah,
Wine,
it doesn't
Women, and Words
really
is more
say what we're about. Yeah, because I mean, my life can be summed up with those 3 words: wine, women, friends. I'm not a lesbian, so I'm very comfortable in my heterosexuality here. But I mean, girl stuff and words.
Fiction.
I was like, oh,
on that note,
I'm like, oh, wait a minute, where am I going with this?
On that note,
we should probably end this before I just start drinking out of the bottle.
Be sure to join us. We're airing a day early next week.
Yes.
Actually, next week is Thanksgiving, so Wednesday night. And
we'll have
Scott is coming on the show
with us, and that is going to. We'll probably end up doing what I'm going to assume doing. We're not going to stay on target when Scott's here. So when Michelle actually finishes part 4, we're going to come on. We're going to have a discussion about the book as a separate little half-hour conversation. And then Scott's going to come on, and it's basically going to be pandemonium because we love Scott, and we never stay on topic with Scott.
No, that is going to be the Scott, Diana, Michelle show.
Yes, it is. Yes, we'll be catching up with him. We'll be having fun and just talking and bullshitting the whole hour. So be sure to join in.
Yes, it'll be fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you everyone for joining, and you still have plenty of time to start reading The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane, and join us next week.
Yes, and pick up Piper's books. Don't forget she's got the Swan book coming out next month. Plenty of other wonderful books, so be sure to check her out. We'll post links to her books too.
Yes, that is a creepy smile I just did. That's terrible.
That's your
Don't ever
kindergarten
do that.
smile.
Anyway.
Those of you who are only listening, you should have seen that smile. It was total
kindergarten. No, it's awful.
Smile. I mean, she was like right on par with Landon.
All right, I'm going now.
And be sure to check out our iTunes page. Give us a like, give us a rating. This way we can actually start making up in the charts. So we will love you forever for that. And check out our Facebook page.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Love you guys. Good night.
Bye.